Hey, Harford County. I'm Emily Adolph of The Soul Lift. You may remember me as a guest on Rich's podcast. Well, I'm back with something special.
And I'm Ona Crow. We're introducing Nourish and Connect, a gathering space designed to bring people together that feels authentic, supportive, and uplifting.
This is about real relationships, shared wisdom, and growth.
Our gatherings nourish with mindful experiences and reflective activities to leave you inspired.
And they're designed to connect with intentional conversations and welcoming community where you truly belong.
They're the second Wednesday of every month. Join us on April 9th at Doss Beer Hall in Bel Air from 5:30 to 7 p.m. to celebrate spring.
And mark your calendars for May 14th and June 11th. We have amazing experiences planned for summer.
Come as you are and let's grow together.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of the work, and I don't know. It's okay. No. The truth is...
Before we begin, I want to inform our listeners that this episode may contain discussions about substance abuse, mental illness, addiction, recovery, or possibly even suicide. Some content may be triggering or distressing for those who have experienced similar struggles or are sensitive to these topics. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek help from a trusted professional or supportive organization. Today, I had the honor of speaking with Thomas Brown, a storyteller, mental health advocate, and the creator of two impactful podcasts, Inner Monologue, a conversational interview series, and Stages, an audio diary exploring mental health, grief, and life's many transitions. Thomas's journey is deeply personal. After losing his brother to suicide in 2001, he spent a decade navigating grief and uncertainty before embarking on a transformative cross-country bicycle tour in 2012 to raise awareness for suicide prevention and the healing power of art. That journey, inspired by Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, is now chronicled in his newly published book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. I almost wanted to say 2012, A Space Odyssey. Wow.
That was intentional.
That's funny. When I'm reading that, it's like 2012. Wait a minute. What? No. You are the second person that I've had on that has bicycled across the United States. The other one who I just spoke with, and she's been on 4 times now, her and her husband rode from Oregon to Washington, D.C. on a tandem bicycle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't make it to the end of my driveway. Anyways, how's it going, Thomas?
It's going. Thank you, Rich, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for it.
Oh, my pleasure. And the first thing I want to talk about is the book, because I want people to purchase the book because I think it's very important. And we've talked about mental health on here a lot. We talk about suicide a lot, and which I think is very important to do, because back in my day when I was younger, it wasn't talked about. You didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And now you're getting more and more people talking about it, and it's helping. It's helping people. It's saving people's lives, which I think is very important.
Yeah. I mean, not only are, a large portion of our population are dying every single day from suicide, but there's a large portion of veterans that are dying every single day from suicide. So I think that's also another important aspect to look at it from. I think with my book, did I send you a copy? Or
yes,
no?
You did.
Okay. So my book is a little bit. It doesn't go into the ins and outs of like, what mental health is and what suicide is. It definitely is. It goes into more of like some of the things that I dealt with, even once I was accepted the fact that my brother was gone, and I accepted the fact that the way that he had gone. Like by the time when the book starts, like you're already like I'm already there. I give a quick like this is like preview or quick story of like what my life was like before he died, after he died, and all that. But so I think like the biggest takeaway that I was trying to get across to the reader is the importance of self-awareness. The importance of awareness, and self-awareness is just one of the pillars of awareness, and how I wouldn't say that it's the only true cause for mental health, mental illness, or even suicide. But I think the importance of self-awareness is one aspect that the professionals who research and study suicide aren't looking at. Like they look at trauma, they look at trauma recovery, they look at like your environment, they look at, whether it's a biological thing. Like those are some aspects that they really like focus on. But nobody's really talking about the importance of self-awareness. And I think that's because self-awareness, like we all have like a level, like a default level of self-awareness. Like I am Thomas, I am walking through the world. But there's so much more than that, of like the who the Thomas is. And what is the character of Thomas, and why does Thomas do the things that he does in any given situation? That isn't something that is explored, and it's not something that like our society really cares to cultivate.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, how many people really know themselves?
Yeah, I mean it's and when I talk about self-awareness, and I don't get into it in this book, hopefully I'll get into it in like the next book. I allude to it here, but like to me, when I'm really asking, there's like, when it comes to self-awareness, there's like kind of like two aspects. How you respond to stress or joy, and what is your character? And to really ask that question forces people to ask to really get to the answer to that. It forces people to ask questions that they may not be comfortable with. There's a lot of pride in like who people are and what they come from. And I don't mean to poo-poo that pride, but I'm asking you to look beyond that. Like, so who are you outside of the state? Who are you outside of your family lineage? Who are you outside of your faith? Who are you outside your meat suit? Who are you outside of your sexual orientation, your gender identity, and your able-bodiness? Like, who are you? Like, I refer to Thomas as more of this character, this avatar that what I truly am embodies in this world that I walk through. And like the ego that Thomas is, and the astronaut meat suit that I embody, is kind of a filtration system in which the rest of the world engages with me.
Right.
So
I'm sorry, I had to laugh because I never heard that term, meat suit.
Some people like it, other people, you know what? Either people really laugh at it or they loathe it. So then I like also.
I'm stealing it, man. I'm stealing it, brother.
So I also just use like avatar is another term that I use that like some people are a little bit more cool with, but. It's so funny. Whenever I say that, people either laugh or they're repulsed. There's no in between. So they're just like, don't say meat suit.
I don't understand. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in today's world, you never know why they're. God. Yeah. But we were just talking about something similar like this. I had another guest on. Actually, the episode dropped today. And especially when it comes to self-awareness, people not knowing themselves. And a lot of times they don't even like themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a giant hurdle as well.
Yeah. Well, why do you not like yourself? What is it about your character that you don't like? Is it your character or is it your station in life? You know? And like, to me, there's two ways, like, I consider myself to be an artist. And they're like, when in this world, a lot of people like to decide, you know, success is something different to everybody. What success is to somebody that I may be engaged in a conversation with is probably going to be much different than mine. To some people, it's like finances. It's success is like the type of stuff that you are able to purchase because of like the money that you make. To me, I don't measure success that way. That like in this paradigm in which we live in, like in this like whatever, I wouldn't really call it a capitalistic society, but it's a little bit more than that. But like, to have money makes things a little bit more convenient, but convenience isn't always success. And for me, like, success is like, is how I manage myself, how I manage my mental health. And I know the things that help me manage that. And one of the things that helps me manage my mental health is being an artist. So when I like, when somebody's like, what do? I usually tell them I'm an artist. But like, you know, because artist is something that can be a loaded word.
A wide variety of meanings.
Yeah. And also like, oh, you don't make that much money then because you're an artist. So I always say, like, when you say that you're an artist, do you say like, I'm an artist, or do you say I'm an artist? You know what I mean? Like, it's the energy, you know, like, I'm a fucking artist. Like, you know, like, you're gonna like try to like shame me for that? Go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
And so I think that there's a way to like, you know, there's like a pride in that's the thing that you are. And I think that if you don't like who you are, it's important for you to find out. Is it the station in life? Is it, you know, do you not like where you're at and you're finding it hard to get out of that? Do you have a plan to get out of that? Or do you not like who you are because you've bought in to what people, you know, other people's interpretation of what success and what like living a good life is? And that's another part of self-awareness, is that like, you know, where do all the influences stop and where do I begin? Because like, look, I'm very grateful of where I landed.
Yeah.
You know, where, whatever you want to call that, is the true identity behind the ego of Thomas. I'm very proud. I'm very grateful of where I landed, you know, but I don't have a lot of like pride because I didn't have anything to do with it. I just landed here. I didn't make this place. I'm suckling the fruits of the labor of others that came before me, you know what I mean? And then just trying to do the best that I can to be grateful for it, to not take it for granted, and also do my best to make sure that like the people that I interact with on a daily basis don't feel less of themselves when they interact with me. You know,
make them feel good.
Yeah. The most important thing to me is that like when you're cultivating awareness, one of the things that you're cultivating is, or one of the things you're trying to like embody is compassion, understanding, and empathy. You got to be able to do that for yourself. It's a two-way street. It's got to go for you, but like it also has to go for the people that you interact with. Whether they're somebody that you see once a week or every 2 weeks at the grocery store, somebody you see when you fill up your gas, somebody at your favorite restaurant, people that you work with or that you interact with because they come into your place of business, or like people in your family. Like, it's just kindness, empathy, and understanding are not signs of weakness. I think they're the greatest signs of strength. You know?
Oh, thank you for saying that. And I agree with you 110%. And one of the things I always told my kids, you know, when you're out and about, smile. Smile at people. Don't be afraid to say hi, because you could be saving that person's life.
Yeah.
It radiates. It's showing positivity, and you're right. It is a strength. I have to laugh because my daughter, my wife, they hate going to the grocery store with me. And which actually they don't even go with me anymore. But whenever I go, by the time I get back, they're like, "Oh, who'd you run into?" Because they know I'll just stop and talk to people even if I don't know them.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Yeah. I always liked when they wear their name tags. I always like to, and if they don't have a name tag, and especially I'm at like a restaurant, I'm like, I ask them, like, hey, what's your name? And then I try to like acknowledge them because I want them to know that I see them as a person and not as somebody that's serving me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, you should be polite at a restaurant in general. You don't want somebody hawking loogies in your food. You know what I mean? It could be a self-serving. It's not always altruistic. It's kind of like, self-serving sometimes. But I think it's just like the best thing to do is like, I don't understand why there's like, I love making fun of dudes because like there's this whole vibe of it's trying to make a comeback. The more the pendulum swings one way with like men being a little bit more like, aware of their sensitivities, that like there's always pushback. You got the Andrew Tates and the Joe Rogans that are like, oh, men are men. And it's like, dude, men are emotional.
Yes.
We're very emotional. Do you know how I know this? Go to any sports bar and you're going to see two extremes happening. Either an extreme amount of joy or an extreme amount of despair. Just because men are only comfortable with expressing those two emotions does not mean that they're not emotional creatures. There's just a wide spectrum of emotions that they're not allowing themselves to get in touch with or to have a relation.
Yeah.
Like, being in touch with your feelings doesn't mean that you're sensitive or soft. It's another form of relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. Knowing the chinks in your armor, knowing where you're strong, where you're soft, how to like guard it, how to not let people take advantage of it. And for me, I'll be the first person to admit my faults.
Right.
Because you can't use it against me if I already am comfortable with admitting them. It's not, you can't use it to shame me.
And I think when you admit your faults, it's faults, failure, because when you admit them and you accept failure as well, it just makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Because you learn from it.
Yeah.
You learn from it.
So back to your, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, back to your, you bring up the book. Like the main thing about the book itself is that it's more of a journey of me expanding my awareness of myself.
Actually, how long did it take you to write the book?
Well,
it's what, 372 pages or something?
It's like 327, but only like 298. Only like 298 are actual story.
Okay.
It took me about 10 years to write.
Wow.
And you know what? A lot of that was just like, and I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, as you could tell from the book. That's my JC. It took me a long time because writing itself was kind of like another mountain that I had to climb. It was another initiation that I had to embark on. It was another dragon that I had to slay. I've always loved the idea of writing. I've always loved the idea of like creating stories and characters and writing like poems, but people used to make fun of me because I was a horrible speller. So that became that kind of like became just like a thing that like, so when I was in film school before the bike ride. I wasn't really, it was a community college, but here in Arizona, the Scottsdale Community College is a really, really, really big, has a really big film school for a 2-year school. And a lot of people, they'll do their 2 years and then they hop over to a big university in California. But I was kind of like, I was like in my late 20s, early 30s when I was in school. So I was just I wasn't worried about a degree. I wanted the experience. I was trying to take as many classes in pre-production, as many classes in production, as many classes in post-production, and then also video, television production and film production.
Wow.
So I was just like, I was doing all of it. And when I got into pre-production and I started doing screenwriting, I realized I was actually a good writer, that I was better at screenwriting because you write the way people talk. Writing a book is
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Literature and screenplays are two different things.
Yeah.
Because you write a little bit of direction, but you don't get, you're like with literature, a novel or a memoir like I wrote, you can play around with description and be a little bit more poetic,
Right.
In screenplays, it's just like, this is this is that. You're just giving you're giving the actor who's playing the part like an idea of what's in the environment. You don't have to be poetic with it. The poetry comes in how the person talks and how they communicate. Right. And so that's where you really have to do it. But you're writing the way people talk. Not the way like a book is written.
You're not painting the picture.
Yeah.
Like
so
a novel.
I think that gave me my first, and that was like right before the bike ride. That kind of like gave me my first like boost of confidence when it came to writing.
Right.
My teacher was really, really, really helpful with that. And so when we went on the bike ride, it was the idea of I wanted to do a documentary, but we didn't raise enough money to hire somebody to come along with us, because we had a support vehicle and all that, because we spoke in over 100 different cities, and we had to be at these speaking engagements too. So we bought the truck so that if one of us got injured, we wouldn't fall behind. The person who's injured could drive the car, and the other person could ride the bicycle. You know what I mean? So we did the 7,000 miles as a team. and the vehicle was like there just for if the other person, which was helpful because I had a bout with diverticulitis for about a week. And then,
oh man,
yeah, and it's come back, and now I'm like, oh, diverticulitis isn't something that happens to you; it's something that you have. So,
man,
yeah. And then my partner who did the bike ride with me, Zach, he had like a back injury for 3 states on the East Coast, so he didn't ride. He didn't ride his bike until we got from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, until about Philly. So Jesus. So I did all the riding from town to town, and he just followed me in a truck. So,
wow, I never even thought about that. I mean, getting injured is one thing, but getting sick, that's another thing, man.
Yeah. And especially with like diverticulitis, it feels like you're digesting razor blades, and like you hit a bump on the bike, and you're just like, oh. Yeah, it's like it's so much pain. So, knowing that I knew pretty early on in the journey that it wasn't going to be a documentary. Like, I had an understanding as a filmmaker of how to like shoot stuff. Zach didn't, but I still continued to shoot footage of the environment, shoot footage with interviewed people. And I used all of that, to help me kind of like continue to remember, a lot of the photographs, a lot of the interviews. And I pretty much knew the outline, and that I wanted to use Joseph Campbell's Monomyth of the Hero's Journey as like the chapter heads. Because that was like also like my way of inviting people to look at their life. Like I use, the hero's journey and storytelling as kind of a tool for self-awareness.
Right.
I when I watch movies and I see what these fictional characters are going through, it doesn't matter if it's fantastical or if it's like a grounded drama, like they're still saying the same thing. It's usually about a struggle, overcoming something, learning. It doesn't matter if the character can fly or levitate things with their mind. Their challenge of what they're trying to learn is something that anybody can understand, because we've all had to face challenges and learn, and we've had like our peaks and valleys and our learning curves and how to overcome stuff. And so, I knew that was going to be the frame of my book. So when I came home, it was really more about, building on that confidence from my film from my screenplay professor. I had a few people that kind of like helped guide me. I would have them read pages. And it wasn't until I had my own back injury that I wasn't, because of the medication I was on, I wasn't able to write for like 9 months.
9 months?
Yeah, I had like 9 months to close to a year of not really writing. And so that's when I started my first podcast, Inner Monologue. And it was, I would record a bunch of these interviews with people, long format, conversational interviews. And then before I would post them, I would record my own monologue. And I would kind of like, use the monologue to talk about the person that we're about, the audience was going to listen to. But I would also kind of like editorialize. I would talk about things that were happening in the world, or my observations of them, or my own personal observations of how I interact with things in the world. And it would be like about a 10 to 15 minute like monologue that I wrote weekly. I wouldn't even write. I would just kind of put like bullet heads, and then I would just kind of like go into a flow state. And sometimes it sounded good. Sometimes you could tell like I was working through something. And usually like it would take me like 4 episodes before I finally nailed what I was trying to talk about originally. But it was doing those monologues that the one piece that I was missing from my book was my voice. Like it was much more biographical and some philosophical ideas, but like my specific voice of how I explain those things was missing. And once I figured that out, I just, I kind of got going. So it's probably like 2016, I started all over again. I had like 4 drafts done, and I just threw those out, and I redid everything, and you
threw them out.
I mean, I had access to the notes, but I pretty much was like, we're starting all over from the beginning. And I just started all over again from like 2016. But like, with 2000, there was a lot of stuff that happened. Like, I noticed that every single time I got a promotion in my job, that that would kill 3 months of writing. Because like,
really?
Yeah, because like the way that I retain information, if you like, one of the symbols on the cover of the book is a turtle. And, I'm very turtle-like, and how my learning curve is very long, like it's very wide and long. And so like there's a lot of energy that I use up learning something, even if it's simple. It's just like if there's a lot of information that I need to retain. So it's like kind of like the energy that I would expel in learning like a new task or a new skill would kind of like, I would come home and I would just be too tired. I'd get off work, I'd go to the gym, and I kind of like, the gym was like my way of exercising my demons. And then I'd come home and I'd just be too tired. And plus there's like other things that I play around with from time to time. I like to do photography and stuff like that. But I would always come back to the book. I had somebody that was also a self-published author. He would call me up, and if I would go like a month without writing, he'd be like, "Hey, dude, you got to get back into it." And I would get back into it. And then, COVID kind of like, that was another.
Put a damper on things.
Yeah, you know what? At first, I was like, I thought, a lot of people were being sent home, and they weren't. They were shutting down. I was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna finish my book. I'm gonna use. Right. I was actually like, there was like a weird part of me that was like, cool, we're shut down. I'm gonna go home and finish my book. But like, even though, and I work for a library, that's like my day job. But the system that I work for was closing the library that I was in because it was in a high school. So I didn't shut down.
Oh,
I didn't shut down. The school stopped, but because there weren't any students there, like we had the whole building to ourselves, and we just,
oh wow,
so we finished. And then I was shipped off to a different library, which I'm still at right now, and I was the acting supervisor for a department. And like having to learn, I'd never supervised people before. And then I had like 8 people under my belt, and learning how to like navigate all those different egos, and also learning how to become a supervisor. To me, like, and I bring a lot of my own personal philosophy into it. I was like, don't call me supervisor. I'm your coach. You know what I mean? This is our team. And like, I'm your coach and you're my teammates. And, you know, and so it just took me a while to like learn how to like navigate egos. And really it forced me to put my philosophy to work, and which helped me kind of like, you know, once again, back to the idea of self-awareness is like, all right, is what I'm writing bullshit? Are the things that are the discoveries that I'm making on the road just foolish? Am I just full of shit, or is it real? And can I apply these outside of a beatnik on the road type of like adventure to you know, an actual work setting? And I think that I've been able to do that. In fact, like now I make a running joke that like if I hire you and you're a young, I used to like hiring like retirees. I was very ageist. I'd rather retire. I'd rather like hire like 60-year-olds that like are just looking because they're bored at home, but they're like, they got a solid work ethic. But now I've started like hiring more young people, which I think has also helped keep me young. But I also tell them like, I'm going to ruin you for all future employment, because I have very strict boundaries. But like, we're going to whistle while we work. We're going to have fun, because life is hard enough. And I don't want you coming to a library and dreading because your boss is hard on you and you're, you know, the environment is just like murky and mean and dispirited. So I make it, you know, I have code words for people like, hey, if I think you're getting a little lackadaisical, a little lazy, you know, a little bit too much chatter back here and not enough work that's getting done. Like I have like a code, and that way, the reason why I have a code word rather than coming out and being like, hey, you guys need to get to work, is because like, I don't want to embarrass them in front of other people. They know the code word.
Good, that's good.
They know the code word. The other people that might be visiting the department don't. You know what I mean?
That's
so
good. That's
it's
smart. That's a good supervisor.
Yeah. And so like working with the team really helped me, as I feel like as an author, to like, if I'm going to bring up these points, if I'm going to make these subtle points in the adventure where when I learn them, I want to make sure that I'm actually practicing it in the real world. So I think like my job and the people that I work with and the people that I supervise, they kind of like help me put more heart into the book.
Yeah.
So
one of the terms I cannot stand, when I used to manage, I used to work in an IT company and I had staff below me. I shouldn't say below me. I hate that. Worked with me. And whenever I would go visit the one group at this one hospital, I don't know how many times I had to get on the one guy. He would always take me around and introduce me. He said, "This is my boss." I said, No. No. Never call me boss.
Yeah.
He said, "But you are." I said, "You can use supervisor or manager, would never say boss." He said, "Why?" I said, "What does boss spell backwards?" Slob? I said, "No. Double SOB, and I'm not a SOB."
I love that.
Oh yeah, I hate that. I hate it being called that.
Yeah,
it's like don't call me boss. We work together, man.
Yeah,
and that's the other thing I didn't like. Don't ever say that. And I've even told owners is I never work for anybody. I'll work with you.
Yeah,
because when you work for somebody, you're not getting stuff done. And that's important, what you said, too, about having fun at work.
Yeah.
If you have, I find that when you have fun at work, you get more done.
Yeah.
And it's quality work.
Yeah. And
quality work.
I'm really actually like proud of the diverse team that I've put together too. You know what I mean? Like I have a very, like I inherited two people. One is like this Japanese woman in her 50s. She's the hardest working person I've ever met in my entire life. She can run circles around, 20 of the best other employees. I have like this 60-year-old that probably wasn't diagnosed autistic, but he's definitely on the spectrum,
Right.
you know? And then like I have people of different sexual orientation and gender and race. And, I feel like having the young people and learning how they view the world and sharing how I view the world, it helps them. You know, I've had employees that come up to me and say like, I just want you to know that because of who you are, you're one of the only 3 white men that I feel safe around.
Wow.
You know, and that's a thing that comes to like awareness. Like I'm a heterosexual white male Gen Xer. All right. How the world sees me is going to be different from how the world will see other people. And I try to keep that in my mind. I try not to be ignorant of that, or, you know, like the world has made great strides in how in equality, but we're not there yet. Evolution did not stop with our thumbs. You know, you know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
We still have a long way to go, and like I think that to me is part of cultivating awareness. Like I call and this is what I call my 3 pillars of awareness. And I'm sure there's more, and I'll probably like add more pillars to it. But the first one is self-awareness, where you're discovering who you are. Why do you respond to why you respond emotionally, and what types of emotions you use when you respond to certain situations, and your character. Who are you? Are you a good person? Right. Who are you outside of all the influences of what people tell you, all the conditioning? That's self-awareness. The next pillar is spatial awareness. My environment, the people that surround me, the people that are in my circle of influence, the actual topography of the layout of the place that I work around. Am I navigating it in a place that shows that I'm paying attention? Not only for my own safety, but for the safety of people around me. And then the third pillar I call social awareness. And that's like understanding that like people are going to have a different experience in life based on simple physical and, you know, how they look physically, what their gender is, what their sexual orientation, what their religion is. And I mean, when it comes to religion and specifically is why I love Joseph Campbell. I always tell people I'm a heretic, you know, I'm not a Christian. I'm a heretic, but through my appreciation of story, I could read the Bible and understand the story it's trying to tell me, because it's still a human story. There's still there are still people, there are still characters that are learning how to exist. I could read the Torah. I could read the Quran. I could read X-Men and Avengers and William Blake, and you know what I mean? And Daniel Quinn and Stephen King. And to me, they're all saying the same thing. They just have a different way of talking about the phenomenon of being, and other books are used in a manipulative way to control people, while the other books are just used as entertainment. But the characters are still going through things that are teaching them how to exist in the world. And that's what storytelling is. I would say that, like, you know, people talk about fire or the invention of agriculture or the invention of the wheel, but like one of the most powerful technologies that we don't even consider a technology, that like is just so ingrained in our DNA and our daily life that we don't even notice it, is language. Language has the power to uplift. Language has the power to control. Language has the power to separate. Language has the power to bring together. And like language is used as a weapon a lot of times, but it can also be used as like the greatest tool for having true freedom.
Yeah. Holy cow. I never even thought about that, but you're right.
It's a technology.
You're right.
It's a tool that we use to communicate with each other.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. When it comes to car care, I'm pretty picky about who I trust. That's why I only use American Auto Repair in Joppa. And guess what? They're celebrating 20 years in business. That's 2 decades of incredible service and expert car care. Whether it's a simple oil change or a complex repair, they handle everything with professionalism and precision. So if your vehicle needs a checkup, head on over to American Auto Repair. Join me in supporting a trusted local business that's been keeping our rides safe and sound for 20 years. Check them out at American Auto Repair Inc.com or call 410-679-6500. Again, that's 410-679-6500 and see why I trust them with all my automotive needs.
Yeah, just certain words have several different meanings. That's all the way you say it, too.
Yeah.
And
also, like,
why is George Carlin popping into my head now?
I love that guy. I agree. I love George. Yeah, I used to. I was raised on that guy. My parents didn't really have like the best boundaries. Bless them when it came to allowing me to watch certain content as a child. And George Carlin was definitely one of those, like, I didn't know what he was talking about half the time because I was a kid. I was like in first grade. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I knew people were laughing at it. And then there were some words that I kind of understand. And then as I got older and older, and like my favorite George Carlin is like right before he died because he was at his angriest. He was.
Oh my God! Yes.
He was just disappointed in the human species and angry about it.
I loved watching him. Him and Richard Pryor was another one. But the one that really I think is a very talented comedian, and you never knew where he was going, was Robin Williams.
Yeah, he was all over. Yeah.
He was so creative, and it's like, how?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand. With this bike ride, how long did it actually take you guys?
It took us 7 months, but that's only because we didn't do a straight line.
Right.
We did a giant W through the country, and then we also took a few cities that we allowed ourselves like a week break.
Okay.
So we would have an event, but then we'd have like 4 days off. So like he had family in Omaha, so we stayed in Omaha for a while. He had friends in Lincoln. We stayed in Lincoln for a while. We hung out in Austin because we'd never been there for about a week. Spent some time in Sarasota, Florida. Spent extra time in D.C., extra time in Philadelphia, extra time in Manhattan. And, because we did it, if we weren't doing any speaking and we were just doing a straight line, we could have been done in like a month and a half, 2 months.
How many miles was the total?
Well, we did combined, total from where we started and where we ended was over 7,000 miles. So, and the fact that we only rode together through California and the last day, and with his injury in Chapel Hill, like he probably rode about 3,000 plus miles and I rode about 4,000 plus miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and you've only done that one time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I walked across the country with a group of people 6 years earlier, And
What?
Yeah, that was when I was walking with a group of progressive Christians from Phoenix to Washington D.C. But I was also originally going to be a walker, and then the main minister, who was my parents' minister, knew that I was into film, so he had me. I became the production assistant for the filmmaker that was the unpaid production assistant for the filmmaker that was following them, and so I did a lot of walking backwards. And,
Oh, God.
yeah. And I just let the walkers, like walk, keep me safe from traffic. A lot of running around them with a camera and, or leapfrogging them in a car and then like running with them and then running back to the car and then leapfrogging them and then, getting a shot of them walking by and then running up and walking with them. And, that was kind of like film school on the road and theology on the road. So I learned a lot. I didn't start drinking. I didn't start drinking wine until I did that walk. Those Christians really love their wine.
All right, so you walked, you've done the bike. Any plans on or was there any other anything else like that?
I have laughed about like, maybe I get like a oversized big wheel. It was like little like do a big wheel across, or handstands across the country. The one thing that I've been to, so I've been to Washington D.C. twice now, right?
Okay.
And I have never arrived to D.C. by plane, train, automobile, or boat. I walked into D.C. and I rode my bicycle into D.C. So I've been. That's like my personal claim to fame. Like that, I've been to the nation's capital twice, and I have not entered by any motorized vehicle, any gas powered and like electric powered vehicle. It's all been foot power.
So now you want to ride a big wheel into there.
Yeah.
You can have somebody pull you in on a wagon, or I would say hang gliding, but I don't know. The airspace there may be pretty well protected.
Yeah, no doubt. But,
wow.
But yeah, I think I really like the idea of traveling in a non-conventional way.
Yeah.
And I think like even if you were, I would rather, I'm not afraid of flying, but I would always much rather drive somewhere, even if it's cross country. If I have the time to do it, if I can allow for the time to do it, I'd much rather drive. You get to see more. You get to experience more. And then when you slow that down even further and you're either walking or you're riding a bike, like it just puts you in so much, you become a part of like the environment more. There's this one part, it's not in my book, but I remember being in Nebraska and I was riding my bike and there's all these like cattle ranches around there. And I was coming up on this huge area of all these cattle and I started yelling at them, "Rise up! Do not be food for the monkeys! Do not be food for the monkeys! You are intelligent beings! Escape!" I'm totally a meat eater, but like I was chanting, and I had like 300 cattle running along the fence line with me as I rode for like another like 500 yards, and they were just running with me. And like, I stopped, and like the support vehicle was like right at the end of that fence, and I stopped, and Zach was like, "What the hell were you screaming? And why were all those like?" He's like, "You have every single cattle that's in there is like now jammed up against the fence, and they were still mooing at me as I was like refilling my water bottle." It's just there's something about like just being on the road and interacting with the environment in that slow pace. I also like the idea, I covet community. Having a community, whatever kind of community, is very, very important for one's mental health. But when you go on an adventure like this and you separate from your community, one thing that might be a downside to community is that we're all subconsciously, authors of each other's story.
Yeah.
And when you separate from that, especially for as long as we did, you get to see who you are outside of, who are you really outside of your community when there's nobody else kind of like, subconsciously narrating who you are and what you are.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a different role as an individual. So I really, really I think I've become much more of a loner.
Okay.
But like I'm fine with that. I'm kind of like I'm part of the community, but I'm the hermit on the hill outside of the village. and I'm totally cool with that. Cause like before, like especially like in the book, I talk about like my primary mental health issue that I had to come to terms with was that I was extremely codependent. And I would find myself, because I didn't want to be alone, finding myself in like toxic relationships, both intimate relationships and also like friendship relationships. And it's not like that they were the bad people. It was more like our mixture of who we were at that moment in time wasn't good for each other.
Blend.
We had a lot of fun, but there came a point where like I recognized we were no longer serving each other. We were no longer positive for each other. And I also knew that I needed to break away and I needed to go on an adventure. And like the walk across the country was actually my way of starting my life. I was like in my late 20s and I was like, I need to do something. So I guess I'll go walk with a bunch of Christians across the country.
Nice pilgrimage.
Yeah, totally. It was.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And the thing is, when you mentioned the one about the cows, the lady I was just talking to, I told you about, who rode, her and her husband did the tandem bike.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Brown, I just talked to her, and she said one of the things that she loved, they were in Montana, which seemed to go on forever. And her husband, Bruce, just said, Terry, look. And they're pedaling, and all these horses were running along with them.
Yeah.
But, of course, the thing is, like she said, a lot of these times you get caught up in the moment, and you don't even think about taking photos or anything.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. You know what I mean? Like I
enjoy life, man.
It's just I'm a photographer. All right. like I love capturing those moments, but there's sometimes like there's something that is so magical, something that is so like mystical and just awe-inspiring. Like you can't even like magical and mystical are lame words because they don't even describe it.
Yeah.
That like that's just for you. There's no picture. You're not, if there's a moment that touches you as much as something like that does, no picture is going to help you remember it any more than you already do.
Right.
And no picture is going to be able to convey it to another person that wasn't there. Just as your words weren't. Your words can't. So like, I just, being able to like not take the picture, I think there's something equally as amazing about that.
So, with the book, any plans on doing an audio version?
Yeah, if I do it, I'll do it with the gear that I have. I have a friend who's a musician.
Good.
I don't know if so on the back of the book, I still hope the Apple one works. I had somebody who built this QR code for me. So I have 3 QR codes. So I have a soundtrack for I have a song for each chapter. So there's a soundtrack to this. Yeah, I mean, these aren't my favorite songs. There's some, there's some old school rock in there. There's some hip hop. There's some kind of like folky stuff. There's some, progressive rock in there. There's some pop, like I said.
I love that though, man.
But like, so the whole idea with Joseph Campbell, he's got a monomyth. There's 17 steps in the monomyth broken up into 3 primary sections, right? So I turned those 3 primary sections into Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3.
Okay.
You have, you know, and I actually named the acts after like the primer. So you have Act 1 is departure. That's where the hero, you, the individual, and I'm sure for a Marine, you would understand this, is that like one day everything was a normal, regular life that you were used to and that you understood, and then you got on that bus. And everything changed, man. And it was a transformation, like just
big time.
just boot camp is a transformation. So Act 1 is departure, Act 2 is initiation, that's when you're on the journey, and then Act 3 is the return, the journey home. And so like I have these different chapters, and they're named so for instance, chapter 9 is atonement with the Father. And then I have a quick layman's term of what that is. I don't use Joseph Campbell's like terminology. I do like a layman's terms because he's very wordy. But I say JC says, so Joseph Campbell, this is the part where the hero or heroes are forced to face their ultimate fear, roadblock, or conflict. And so I tell you what that chapter title means, and then I do 2 things for you. I give you lyrics from a song and dialogue from a movie that kind of like they're connected to that vibe of what the chapter is about, and it kind of like sets you up for what my journey is about. So I use this book. I intentionally use Joseph Campbell's monomyth of the hero's journey as like a legitimate tool for you as the reader, that when you're reading this, that you see how your life and the story that you're living is just as similar to these fictional characters and the story that they're living, and that what their experiences are. That we're all heroes in our life, just as much we may be a villain in somebody else's or the comic relief in another person's, but in our lives we're the heroes and we're going on adventures. And through awareness, I'm hoping that people will be a little bit more intentional in what adventure they go on. Because, you know, like adventure could be, our society doesn't really have a legitimate initiation and trial. You know, I think the closest thing to it is military service. But, and I've never been in the military, but I've had enough friends that I get the idea of like, you know, rebuilding somebody. So it's the closest thing that we have. I think high school wants to be that, but because the people that are running high school never went through that it's not part of their actual system of how they run that institution. You know, you have to have it needs a trials, and having a life where you have like an initiation where like the immature person who doesn't have a lot of responsibility, you know, transcending into the adult mature who now has the burden of responsibility but knows how to handle it. And there's no actual ritual in between that teaches us that breaks us down in a very healthy way and helps us transform into a mature adult that like gives us the skill sets. Like you have your trials, you have your initiation is like the school, the practice. And then the trials are the tests that you have to take. But like we don't have anything that prepares our young people, that truly prepares them for the world that they're entering in. And, you know, I don't and in the for a while I used to think that like, you know, back in my aluminum hat wearing days, that this was like that this was an intentional. This was an intentional, nefarious act by the powers of be to keep us stupid, docile, and more controllable. But now I think it's more just basic neglect and ignorance. And
I believe that.
And neglect and ignorance, you still have people that, you know, want to take care of themselves. And like their interests with other people in their position, interests converge, And that's why they weren't taught anything else. They don't have the skill set to teach that. So they're more of at it in more of a selfish way, rather than seeing how like a true initiation and trial for our young people would benefit the entire community. And we just don't have that. And high school is a lame attempt at that.
Well, I mean, you think about it, some of the things that they don't even teach in school anymore is how to balance your checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that's never taught is common sense.
Well, emotional intelligence.
Hell, they don't even teach home ec anymore, I think.
Yeah, but emotional intelligence. Like I think if there was one thing that I could bring to the world, or if I had the opportunity to bring to the world, imagine if there was like a class just was called awareness. And you start when you're in first grade or when you're in kindergarten, and you have and you don't get an A or you don't get graded on it because you're just learning yourself, and there's no way to like tell you if you're paying attention or not. There's no way for you to be like, some people might just be a little bit slower in in their navigation. But right now, awareness is like any other skill set. Some people are born with a great sense of awareness. Some people are born and they could pick up a guitar and not know like how to read music, but they could play it. Some people can pick up a bow and arrow and they hit the bullseye every single time. You know what I mean? Awareness is like that. So, but it can also, it's a skill set that you can learn. And right now, the only way, there's like two primary, I'm not going to say they're the only ones, but there's two primary ways that people find themselves on a journey of self-discovery. Either they need a humanities credit for their degree, and so they just willy-nilly take like a philosophy class, and after a semester, their mind is blown and they start asking deeper questions. Or you've suffered a trauma. You were in combat and you watched your loved one, you watched your buddy die, or, you were in a car accident, or your wife died of cancer, or you were raped, or you were mugged, or you were in a burning building, or something happened and you became an alcoholic.
Things,
yeah. There's always different traumas that you could like, and like once you realize that like, you might need some extra help and you can't do it by yourself, and it shouldn't be your family and friends' job to help you heal. They could be there a part of your community, but you have to heal. So you have to seek out people that have the intelligence to help walk you through that path. That's when so it's either like I need it for my school, or I suffered a trauma and I need to heal myself. Those are the only two paths, those are the primary paths that put somebody on a road of a journey of self-awareness, if they weren't already born with it.
Yeah.
So
that would be great if it could be taught.
Yeah. Yeah, but you need to have a generation of like, you can't just have anybody teach it. You have to have a certain elder that like has already gone through it.
Somebody like you.
Maybe one of these days. If I could give something to the world, it would be like a kindergarten through senior year in high school curriculum of how to cultivate awareness and expand your awareness.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
that would be great. It's definitely needed.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah,
man. All right, so something very important.
Mm-hmm.
Tell everybody where they can get the book.
If you go to risephoenix.org, that's my website. There are links to all the social media. There's also links to the podcast that I play around with sometimes. They're not weekly anymore, but I still do them. And there's also a link to my book. Right now it's only on Amazon. I'm trying to get it on some other print to buy websites as well. But if you get it and you like it, please leave a review. And if you have a Goodreads account,
and buy it for somebody else as well.
Well, I would actually say buy yourself a copy. If you like it, pass it on. Put it even like what I've been doing is I've been like getting copies and I'm putting them in those neighborhood libraries. Those
Yes.
little I've been putting them in there.
That's a great idea.
And I just leave like a little like laminated card that says like, please, if you like this book, please leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads.
Oh, that just gave me an idea.
Yeah.
So all of you listening, especially you business owners, purchase this book. Go on the Amazon. Go on to Amazon. 2012, a space. I did it again. God, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey by Thomas Brown. Look at how many of these little libraries are in your area, and purchase that many books for it and put them in there. And then just put your card in there, your business card. Say if you liked it this much, pass it on. Put in another one. I think I would love to see more businesses and people just buying a messload of the books and passing them on, because people can learn from it. It makes a big difference. And also, when you go to the website, what's the website again?
RisePhoenix.org.
Make sure you go on to the About section. You can click on the 2012 Bicycle Tour and look at the photos. When he was in Maryland, you could see his love for a turtle. When you mentioned the turtle, I'm looking at the book and I saw that photo. I was like, oh, hell yeah. I think that's the only photo of a turtle, is it? Right there in Maryland or Delaware, one or the other. That has to be one of them.
Yeah.
So before I get to wait a minute, you said you're working on another book already?
Yeah. So I want to do a follow-up to 2012. The acronym for like the banner in which we rode our bike under is RISE. It stands for Revolution Inspired Self-Evolution, which is just a pretentious way of saying like, true change comes from within. And it's kind of like our moniker for awareness, expanding awareness. I want to write a philosophy book. The importance of how, and it's not going to be like this is how you do it. This is how I did it. Everybody who is in a journey of self-awareness has to write their own playbook. You just have to start, and it can be messy at first when you don't have a foundation and you're building your foundation. It's also going to be a little examination of like the importance of initiation and what initiations are and how it's more of like the first step of a 12-step program. I'm recognizing problems in our society. I do not have the answers because I'm not that smart. But I don't think it's going to be very long. It's it's just going to be a philosophy book. Philosophy books don't need to be 300 pages. And then I want to do a follow-up to that one, which is now that you've started cultivating awareness, let's talk about what I call myths of society. And these are things that that our society still participates in, but no longer serves us as a society. And that one will be much harder to swallow for a lot of people because it'll be a a very critical examination on the society in which we live in right now.
Oh, yeah, you're definitely going to have to come back on then when those are ready.
Hopefully it won't take me 10 years to write.
I hope not. All right, so before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
Just thank you for the opportunity of having me on your show. This has been fun. You're a great guy.
Oh, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. So usually I'll ask somebody, what's the next big thing? But I know already what the next big thing is for you is the books. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, something we really didn't talk about. Tell us about your brother,
Mark Brown. He was my older sibling of 6 years. We had a very interesting relationship. He was like, I remember being he introduced me to comic books. He really was like the reason why I loved movies. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm a Marvel Comics geek. I don't care if the Marvel movies are bad and people think that they're woke or whatever reason that they have to complain about it. I will ride or die. I just love going into that world and seeing the comic book on the screen, and it reminds me of being a little kid. And I think that's the magic of movies. You know, he supported me. I remember being bullied by this one guy when I was in second grade, and my brother like threatened him, and it was like the coolest thing. Like he was like my superhero. He got me into basketball. I lettered in basketball when I was in high school. We started to drift away after I graduated from high school. My brother was hurt by a woman he was engaged to when he was in college, and it did a number on him. And he told himself he was never going to be hurt by a woman again. And, you know, he took his own life, but I really say like that is the symptom to the greater problem that plagued my brother. And that my brother I'll say that my brother was killed by toxic masculinity, by him accepting this narrative of what a man is supposed to be. And to him, like one of the components of a man is how many women you can get and how many women you can conquer. And for the longest time, he had two primary girlfriends. One was a girl that graduated from high school with me, and one was my boss. And I didn't want to have anything to do with his web of deception. You know, I didn't agree with it. I didn't think it was a very cool thing to do, but I actually, like, I looked at it and it was kind of, I will admit, it was an impressive web that he weaved. And using one, and again, like the power of language, he used language to weaponize those women's denial against them. And, you know, he did it for 10 years. And after about 10 years, they both got smart and they both left him. And that destroyed him because it was his entire existence was built on an illusionary foundation, and he didn't know how to recover it. And instead of just telling his friends that he was sad, you know, in order to sell a lie, you got to believe a lie. And he believed the lie with those women too much that it like crippled him. And so he needed a new lie to sell. And it wasn't that he was sad. It wasn't that he was depressed. It wasn't that he made a mistake in how he was behaving. It was, I'm sick. I'm physically sick. I have cancer, and that's why I'm acting the way that I am. And, you know, him and I didn't talk for about 3 years. We would hang out at family functions, and it wasn't until like April when he said that he had cancer that him and I started to like rebuild our relationship. He didn't like me because I liked cannabis. And I didn't like him because if, you know, he would create rumors about me because I wouldn't lie for him. And I just so like, so we just didn't talk to each other for like 3 years if it wasn't a family, you know, interaction. And there's one night that I really remember he came over to my house, or I was house sitting for somebody. He came over and he had never smoked pot before, and I got him super baked, and we watched Empire Strikes Back together, and it's like he was watching it for the first time, and he was it was just fun to see him, like, you know, watching something that him and I loved from childhood, but like seeing it from a different vantage point. And not only that, but sharing something with him that he used to demonize me for, and being okay. And so we had from like April till August of that year when he finally died that we were rebuilding our relationship. So I'm always grateful for those 4 months that we had, you know, of repairing what was broken for almost 4 years. But, you know, I have to tell you this one last thing. And I got to go back to work, but so my partner, that's a self-portrait of her right there. These are her paintings.
Oh, wow.
I met her. She was my contact at the art retreat center that we ended our bike ride at. We started at the Golden Gate Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a documentary called The Bridge about people that have gone there to end their lives. And then we ended at an art retreat center called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors by artist Alex Gray. And the reason why we ended there is because to him, art is his religion. And he saw that art has the ability to heal people, not only the artist, but the audience. And so that was where a lot of my influence came for like art as a healing power. The healing power of art, which is one of the things that we talked about on the bike ride. But Sharon was my main contact at the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and we fell in love like immediately. And we dated each other for about a year and a half, 3,000 miles away from each other. And she's living here now, and we've been with each other for 11 years now, living together. We've been dating. We are official since November 27th of 2012. So I bring that up that, you know, if my brother hadn't died, especially in the way that he did, I wouldn't have the love of my life.
Right.
So I can't, like when people ask, like, would you ever want your brother back, or do you miss your brother? And it's hard to answer that question because I wouldn't have something so amazing and beautiful unless I had that trauma and heartbreak before. Because there's no reason for me to ride my bike where I rode it to 10 years after my brother's death if he's still alive. So how do I meet this person that's separate from me 3,000 miles, you know? I wouldn't have, if my brother was still alive, Sharon wouldn't be in my life. And I'm so grateful that I have her in my life. Like, she's my true partner in crime. So,
wow, man.
And I bring that up to say that, like, you know, experience is experience. If you're suffering a trauma, allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to go through the process of feeling it. When you're strong enough to where you can step away and look at the experience, you're going to ask yourself the most important question, and that's, why did this happen? And that's where you become a student of the experience rather than a victim of it. And you can learn and you can grow and you can expand your awareness and you can become a better person, not only for yourself, but for the people that interact with you. So one horrible experience led me to a beautiful one 10 years later.
That's something I've always said. If you when something bad happens, look at the positive part of it, and you just
you got to go through it
all right there, man.
Feel all the poopy feelings about it, but you know, eventually you'll get to a point like, okay, now what? What do I do with this?
Right,
and you learn from it.
Wow, damn, I love the picture too.
Yeah, she's great.
I do.
This one's already sold.
I do love it. Oh
yeah, this one's already sold. She sold it. It's going to be in a show next week. So, and then she's
nice.
Yeah.
You got to put them. Does she have a website?
Yeah, Sharon Steluto.
For her art?
SharonSteluto.com.
All right, spell that last name.
STELLUTO.
All right, I want to put that in the show notes too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it. She's a beautiful artist.
All right. You got it, man. Thomas, thanks a lot. I cannot wait to talk to you again, brother.
Right on. This has been fun. I appreciate you, Rich. You have a good one, man.
You too. Thanks.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going.